Hello peeps. Today I wanted to make a video talking about my experience with my E2 Feixiao for the last 2 months and why I believe he is the best vertical investment I have ever made, and I'd actually argue he is just one of the best vertical investments, including support wise in general, right? So I think the reason I wanted to make a video on this is because when I do give values on characters, I usually either don't have them or don't take them that seriously, and so they're just very quick TLDRs going over my general thoughts. However, I thought, why not give one where I go very into detail about my thoughts of the character, since I actually own Feixiao and I really care about him, right? So let's go in this together. As you guys may or may not know, put out a community post. I haven't been uploading that much recently, but that's actually because I'm taking the game more seriously instead of less. I was trying to get a 3-man 4-cost 0 cycle with Feixiao, which just means there's no 4th slot, there's no 3rd support, just Bronya, RMC, and Feixiao. And unfortunately, my relics aren't up to par for it, so I'm about 200k damage off from clearing the first wave, and I already know I'm guaranteed to clear the second wave because I already tried it, right? So my E2 Feixiao at least can for sure guarantee a 1 cycle using only RMC and Bronya, and this is really impressive, right? Like, this is very, very impressive, and it kind of made me think that if I can get 1 cycle with only 2 other supports on a Feixiao team, the value this guy has is incredibly high. Now, I don't just say this from a pure damage standpoint, right? Yes, he is one of the top damage dealers, and it does contribute to the value that his eidolons give him. However, there's another aspect to Feixiao that, for example, someone like Cassie doesn't really have, in my opinion, where he is incredibly general. He can use basically any buffers that the game offers because all he cares is about straight up buffs, and he's the one who does all the damage. So unlike Cassie, who in my opinion is much weaker than Feixiao at base, but stronger with perfectly synergistic teammates and the full premium team, Feixiao has all his power budget kind of just thrown onto himself. And so I prefer a character like this, as it allows me to put my premium supports on another team, right? Alongside this means he can very easily be indirectly buffed going into future versions. The stronger supports get, just as you see currently with a lot of version 2 units using the Hyacine Tribi wheelchair, or also using Cypher to really help them in endgame content where it's more lower target scenarios and you're able to just nuke a boss, right? And it's likely that this won't stop, and instead it will continue going into the future. And then there is the other advantage that Feixiao has, which is he is one of the easiest characters in the entirety of the game to run Sustainless with. You can, in a lot of cases, if you do your rotations right, get 2 ults off even in Sustainless, and this is really, really strong because you need to keep in mind, I just mentioned my E2 Feixiao with only 2 free-to-play supports getting a 1 cycle, and it still had like 1 ult turn left. That is very, very strong. And so you can only imagine that if I'm able to get another ultimate off, well, I could deal with basically double the HP inflation if the game ever hit me with that, even without a 4 slot. And that is crazy, right? Alongside this, unlike Cassie, Feixiao is actually getting one of his teammates free. Dan Heng, he is now completely confirmed free by the devs, and this does make a difference. Even if you don't have Sunday, in my example, just throwing Dan Heng in the 4 slot will give Feixiao 45% damage boost, as he gives that to himself whenever he's healed or shielded. Alongside this, if you have Sunday, there's another 50%. He as well gives an attack buff. He allows you to, well, never die, so obviously you now have all the cycle clear time possible instead of trying to do as much damage as quickly as possible before you die, right? There is value in that. This is one of the things I really hate that people ignore when they bring up Dan Heng being a bit worse than like E1 Tribby and some other supports. The difference is those supports don't allow you to literally live forever, right? They straight up don't allow you to do that. So when you consider the fact that he is near E1 Tribby level, at same level of vertical investment for Phenon, but he's a sustain, it is incredibly valuable, especially for the majority of this game's player base. Now, of course, if you prefer Sustainless, you can go ahead and go for that if that's to your liking. All I'm saying is Danny does have greater value than a lot of people let on, because they're simply disappointed that since Cassie is an HP scaler, she benefits much more from a premium sustain as compared to Phenon, right? So that is kind of my experience I've had with E2 Feixiao. He's not even just a great DPS vertical investment, he's just the best vertical investment I have ever made, including E1 supports that I have pulled for, because he frees up my premium supports for my second weaker team, and this just makes endgame a complete breeze, right? You can only imagine if my E2S1 Phenon with only 2 other supports is getting a 1 cycle in endgame, then when I use my E1S1 Sunday, when I use my E1 Robin, when I use this and that with my other DPS, they're able to perform much better, and I don't even really need to worry about it all that much, right? Clearing endgame in Honkai Star Rail for my main account has basically become a complete non-issue because of E2 Feixiao. Now, of course, DPS is most notably power creepable in HSR. I will not deny that. However, all I'm saying is, even with future power creep in mind, I'm quite confident in E2 Feixiao will still hold his weight even in version 4, right? Acheron, I just saw recently, has a 7 cost 0 cycle with sustain against Japar. Feixiao is also still doing amazingly good. Optimally invested in Fireflies can also get 6 or 7 cost 0 cycles. A lot of these version 2 units, even though they for sure need more limited investment to clear, will still clear if you go the extra mile for that vertical investment. And considering just how much stronger vertical investment exactly is in version 3 compared to version 2, it's much more worth it here, right? Now, yes, version 4 characters could get even larger jumps in their Eidolons. However, once again, you have an E0 Acheron getting a 7 limited 0 cycle with sustain in the current MOC. So you gotta imagine an E2 Feixiao with as big of a jump that he receives going into his vertical investment, that should 100% leave you Gucci for a long time to come. And 0 cycling isn't the standard, right? You don't need to actually 0 cycle outside of a kind of self-achievement. You have 5 cycles for each side, and specifically in HSR, you can save cycles if you insta brute force one side for another team, making it even easier, right? This is personally an issue I take with Wuwa's TOA. I can vertically invest into my Augusta team as much as I want and clear within like fucking 30 seconds, but I still won't be able to save time for another team to clear that's on the weaker side on my account. For now, it isn't an issue. However, it's 100% something HSR has an advantage with. You can just brute force one team and then take 8, 9, 10 cycles on the other one, still get the max rewards, which is really solid, right? So I understand a lot of people don't like it when I talk so openly about vertical investment. They think it's unrelatable or stuff, but you got to keep in mind, pretty much all my gacha accounts are free to play. The only one that isn't is my Phenon account, and legit only one Phenon copy is what I paid for. I would have gotten E1S1 Phenon no matter what because of the really good luck I got. However, I understand why people may look at me negatively when I go into vertical investment. It's just that personally, I love going for optimal investment. I love it, right? I know a lot of people are scared of going for etalons or this and that, but I am a true lover of vertical investment. I love playing around with it, and I have E2 Cassie, I have E4 Noxa, I have E2 My Day, I had E2 Herda and E2 Acheron, and I even have invested E1 into supports many times. The character I've gotten the greatest value out of from vertically investing in them is easily Phanon. I mean, even outside of just considering MLC cycle clearage, you really need to keep in mind how big of a boon his etalons are, especially the first two when it comes to clearing the other endgames, right? Because this is one of his bigger issues. It's not just clearing MOC, it's being able to perform well in AoE scenarios like Pure Fiction or APOC scenarios where your AV is what's counted, right? And getting extra turns that consume 0 AV is massive for Phanon. And on top of this, his toughness damage is very, very fucking high. So once you get to E2 and you get those extra turns from meteors, it is an insane difference. You just eat through toughness bars. And then in Pure Fiction, my god, a complete monster. In E0 at max, he can only do 7 of his own attacks, maybe I believe 10 if you have Ceridra to generate double meteors, right? However, at E2, it's completely different. He generates legit double the amount of attacks because he's doing meteor counter, and alongside Ceridra, this turns into 17 attacks with E2 Dana Hung, which is what I'm considering getting, 21 attacks. So I do believe personally Phanon is the greatest vertical investment in the game currently, right? Of course, this will always change going into the future. Don't feel too much FOMO about it. However, this is my personal experience. He makes brute forcing all endgame content easy. He works with free-to-play supports incredibly well, allowing me to free up those supports for my weaker team. And he also is just really fun animations-wise, one of the coolest characters in the game, and I can't get enough of him, right? So here's my E2 Phanon Glaze video 2 months later playing around with him. He feels fucking amazing. Best investment I ever made. If any other E2 Phanon users are out there, comment down. Let me know your thoughts on him too. Do you love him as much as I do? Because I 100% do. I know a lot of people say, oh, you're paying to play the game less, right? And maybe you aren't wrong. However, sometimes I really do just like seeing big damage number. And specifically in Phanon's case, this is a character I care about enough to where I want to be using them for a long time coming instead of simply replacing them within what, half a year, because he's now been power crept by a new version, right? Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. What, in your opinion, is your best vertical investment you've ever made for your account? I already know a shit ton of people are going to be saying E1 Tribby, and peace out.